Hello, YouTuber Anthony Wall, also known as Romulus Wall, youtube.com/user/Romulus Wall. They're all kind of videos. Don't miss the ones associated with Little Rap Guy and Friends. And who heard about who's gonna believe in the This is the method for pantheism that came from some ancient times. From ancient times. We're going to break down the ages, such as, we'll examine this. But in other words, we're going to take counter positions to the positions with the opinions and convictions. Inter-science is individually grouped and together. Inter-opinions of everybody. People A through Z. Colonists A through Z. Native Americans A through Z. Because it was recorded that a breaching method divided them from themselves. They divided everyone from themselves because they separated everyone from proper education. And they simultaneously left and propagated self-cultivated, self-valued identities, pretending other for the breaching screen, not realizing they were a breaching screen, because no one forced those sick, crazy laws. It is what is simultaneous. Lead true always, and not denying exceptions as exception nature, as exceptions. See, this preaching method from some ancient times knew that it was going to make modern nations that are only capable of blaming other things other than themselves wrongly for the real causes of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, and they were going to self-value that. They knew individually grouped and together, the soul of every person would long the native value/value progression that we all were before the sciences became criminally foreign influenced. So culture, physical difference, became other than it was. And it was engineered further sickly distinctly, more and more other than it was and is, increasingly, for the value progression, in relationship to the value progression, value/value progression, perfect, that which generated everything most plausibly for science, actually science true always, and as this science that uses that identity of truth that is true always, not denying exceptions, not denying exception nature, not the slightest. It is also evidence that and how lawyers and how the bar itself had physical delusions and had, with the branches of government, with the everything, database relationships, including military, hundreds of nations shared sick this way, as fact treatment nature, proper styles, premises treatments, sequence treatments, self-valued criminally foreign influence, self-valued delusions raw. Per how everyone was a victim, again, per this method that came as a breaching method that you have to understand everything simultaneously, as correlation nature is about the simultaneous. What is most critical to computers is what is simultaneous. They can only mimic this, no matter what technology they have. They can only be a system that is other than, unless we put the pantheism, which is a science. This is not asking faith. It is also evidence where and how they have the identities as fact treatment nature styles, defending identities of religions as victims, maintain victim predators, tools, weapons, breaching screens, like every other identity. Sickly distinctly. So individually grouped in together, everyone self-valuing, values systems tactically ulterior from the one that has why we are individual grouped in together actually bonded. Its system as that identity of truth, as that identity of value/value progression. See, we have realize how investigations, investigators, and vetting identities, and investigations of that in relationship to people trying to use logic, like Native Americans, like colonists A through Z, like locations A through Z. Sickly distinctly, the North and the South had surface nations involved with the slavery. But they were themselves in that trap where everyone was a slave, fact-cheating nature-wise. Everyone had theater as criminal institutions that was criminally legalized. Everyone, each age of fact-cheating nature, was as methodically hurt through a whole bunch of motivations, natures, needs, interests, real, apparent, but not that which is actually true always, not the exceptions, which is also apparent. But we don't have people following rules. We have rules, crimes, offensive predators, fabrication of audio and video. Hundreds of nations do it against their own, and ours do it against our own. Per method that keeps all natures of sophistication, fact-cheating nature-oriented, capable of countering all the imperpositions that have grown from and as things like war, physical value/value progressions that we have to counter. But see, modern nations, A through Z, A1, through Z, however many there are. Modern countries, nations, and territories are in as a semi-ancient trap, being exploited by one that's even worse. That's overt, archetypal, overt/insidious, simultaneously overt and insidious, archetypal organized crime. Archetypal criminal enterprise. So this breaching method knew that people associated with Jim Crow laws would have to use terms like criminal insidiousness nature. And they would have to use terms like, phrases like, criminal insidiousness, which is, I believe it's in the law's, Black's Law Dictionary. But criminal insidiousness nature, I'm adding this. Whenever you put nature after a word/value, it's how we're going to use this science, which is also, I have to figure out what coding language. Anyway, so there are all kinds of, since every campus I went to had connections with it, and all victims. This is also how Sense and Sensibility used Jane Austen's phrase, are recorded actually maintained and having been maintained and managed. So what is true always in relationship to things like that and impositions upon the majority of black people and where they came from and how they're being used? It is simultaneously by people pretending they don't realize how they're using it wrongly, in collusion with what is preventing originally and still invisible but still discernible, bound a method binding as the binding to predicate acts as a predicate acts delivery system method. That was an organized breaching method that is using human fact-cheating nature and human styles of defenses of human fact-cheating nature, where nature is demonstrating negative value nature progressions, acts, natures, and there are styles blaming out other things other than themselves, self-valuing all victims, influenced, tricked, hurt, persuaded, to uses of identity, the ground locations of other people, when in relationship to investigations, investigators, and vetting, and investigations of that. For example, simultaneously in collusion with overt criminal enterprises and with private ones, originally still where this is all identity, the ground locations method tied to our human fact-keeping nature. Again, where there is and how there is a perfect value/value progression system as one identity of volume per science, not just per theory. It means you stay on the premises, you stay on the sequences. See, when people make overall, the sciences where they were enforced only realized they're being abridged, it was from off campuses specifically. It was from simultaneously, again, off database relationships, private ones off the records, breaching method employed, since before our founding parents were born. So you want to take something like slavery, you want to take it seriously. So, but they had that theory, so that theater then, that is either fake, leaving out and exploiting exceptions in exception nature, that is simultaneously preventing use of that identity of value/value progression that keeps it discernible where and how positive treatments by and as criminal insidiousness natures, which nations, modern countries, nations, and territories, A1 through Z, however many there are, they are recorded, confessed, and demonstrated. They'll simultaneously pretend other, but you can catch them if you follow the rules. Because there's criminally foreign influence premises treatments, sequence treatments. As bad as that is, it's positive because it was engineered. And so, but this is fluent through our nations. This is a method that maintains all locations, areas, and states, uses of positive treatments, negative treatments, uses of other people's identities, uses of all concepts like fights, boxing, violence. We have people that pretend to be against violence that are in the furtherance of it. So if you do things that are legal like boxing, they're right there already offensively with investigations, investigators, and vetting identities, investigations of that being used and having been used remotely. Having been using that to hide their personal and everyone around them, victims. So they put lies in that are illusions that are being used to exploit others, not by accident. Our identity of volume as value as fact-keeping nature, where it counts, where we are nature, undisputably, where value is nature / nature is value simultaneously, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, so it's invisible but still discernible. Shouldn't have to prove this to people. This should have already been known. We have identity thefts and frauds that are simultaneous with the interbranch uses of investigations, vetting, investigators, and overt criminal enterprises and private ones, recorded how kept needing to hide the same finite, active, progressive lies. Note how strangers they influenced to make confessions to me at once that didn't go to my school, that lived around the high school and the middle school of Weathersfield years ago. This is with further people on the Child Defender Registry, with other natures and methods of identity thefts and frauds rolls recorded, including falsified police reports rolls, including methods of that where they have all different towns' police forms that take rolls with foreign and domestic associated with federal criminal co-defendants from other federal criminals from other cases. There's a Leahy family that pretended I had conversations about this in agencies when these are people that had proven federal criminals after I got out of high school. They had their family members themselves when I was in high school involved with all kinds of natures of federal crime with databases. They never asked me one question about what I filmed regarding this. Now this is where the people that there's a Leahy family associated with them, and with their roles with all kinds of investigations in various natures of courts with them personally involved with locations on and off campuses, all kinds of methods that there's where they pretend the right to lie. These are worse than just child abuses. And they sustain not responding and separating issues. The Weathersfield police are recorded themselves, confessing, recording, demonstrating that they forged names, switched names, put people into quotes, fake relationships between people in their grades growing up, their age group, but they never see each other around. Never had a class together. Like two Mendez brothers. On off Weathersfield Police Department rolls with fabricating police as equipment. All rolls with identity thefts, frauds. For example, in relationship to what I recorded for my health class, and this is also the police chief years ago, at least one, and my town's police chief now, involved with the House /S that they recorded, confessed, demonstrated, they influenced and abused, forced to roles with them where they make fake sides of, they make problems between people. Because when you have to discuss it, they have already been offensively in collusion with a whole bunch of other nations, leading up to and in the World Trade Center attack. They were in collusion with this predicate acts delivery system method. I am not a lawyer. So, it is evidence to correlation how lawyers were recorded involved as styles that themselves are evidence, pretending other with them what is really what is recorded, confessed, and demonstrated by people pretending to be about science, all identity the ground, relationships, and identities. If they could defend that as that native system that we are, individual, grouped, and species identity of volume /S, it is in demonstration of how it has two further identities of sequence /simultaneous nature as the same identity of volume in demonstration to us. Exactly why we have, I'm not a doctor, you can observe through a microscope the cell nucleus, the cell body, and the cell wall of vegetables, like tomatoes, because they're transparent. Look at through a microscope. You could make what's small big. You could look through a type of telescope. Make what's small big, make what's big small, simultaneously. Because the identity of all directions is even more than that. Again, so we'll examine it. So, I'm not a doctor either. We'll examine uses of the physical delusions and the bonded natures of organized crime, bonded by use of them, which is roles with the predicate acts delivery system method, leading up to the World Trade Center attack, in the context, and since Connecticut Interbranch and Foreign were all victim predators, some overt predators, as ones further involved with on and off campuses, with what has already been that, from off campuses originally and still, which exploits it at the off campuses, which is where it was already exploited. It is ingrained with the human fact, treatment, nature, ties to the identity of the ground, locations. So, for example, who cares about the? So we have to admit and realize this actually recorded trap, this semi-ancient trap, semi-ancient breaching method influenced modern nations' foundings, trapped already in it. Speech forced by all locations, areas, and states as styles of positive and negative treatments, identity treatments, sequence treatments, database relationship treatments, science treatments, fact treatment nature, that can't defend that and afford to have a leader, not in collusion with their overt negative and or the criminal and seditious natures of positive in collusion with it, even though the sides hate each other. Because we are bound, specifically what is engineered, a human fact-cheating nature breaching method, a means to perpetually control all positions of sophistication. So even though we have means way beyond the standards today, it's easy to pretend not to realize that the answer of individuals or of groups altogether of what to do, for example, where we have people stacking. Everyone pretends passion and emotions. It's fake when it comes down to following mandated law. There are only 3 branches of government. Even when they make opinions about the past today, it shows what they're doing today. You don't know what's recorded. Now, if we admit this, it further prostrates our identities of sophistication, where we are fact-cheating nature only means to counter things like wars and what lead up to them and what's already been then defending itself. Counters to unnatural things are unnatural defenses of positive and negative. Again, originally and still employed. All kinds of natures of motivation, good and evil. This breaching method has unity, needs good and evil collusion against each identity of correlation nature, each age of it, each identity of it. So please follow mandated law. In New York City, please respond. For Connecticut Interbranch, they use the method of pretending they don't know what the other police forms and ones with their department have been confessing and recording, while they stack names and switch names, forge names, and fabricate audio and video on and off the Wethersfield Police Department, wire crime rolls with agencies, with the roles with the on and off campuses, narratives where there are complete strangers I only know because they influence them, like how they exploit boys and girls. At the same time, all has ties to the judges and to the prosecutors involved with locations and with on and off campuses, influences of, and roles with manifest, imprinted, forged, ground to their breached constitution, breaching screened, other pretended simultaneously. You must understand James Madison's plan. You must understand. I want to keep the language clean, but that would have been a good rhyme. Control your mind. So, for example, I said so many things that are so critical in so many videos, like regarding Sandy Hook. People associated with Sandy Hook are foreign and domestic, interbranch, and military, and private associated with them. Before that, they were involved and are involved with vertical and horizontal, predicate acts, illusion stacking, wrongdoing, illusion stacking roles on the campuses. And they were hiding lie progressions, right back to all identity of the ground locations. This breaching method used everyone remotely since before electronic definitions of remote. This was of the database relationships. I should know, a professor at Central Connecticut State University helped me become aware of how they had database relationships. See that because they have these narratives. They have criminally foreign influence takes on our American history, pretending, and the reasons they have it is where they have the experts. But we don't want to talk to our kids about that. They're attaching other kids involving their kids with their roles with juxtaposed natures of organized crime. Originally still uncharged because we are on free speech, because we have interbranch fabricating audio and video, because of their uses of identity of the ground locations, all along Farmington Avenue, on and off the Harriet Beecher Storehouse, where former director of the FBI, Robert Lusk, and his lawyer, Robert Cheverie, associated with Farmington Avenue. I believe I don't know if he's still there. But other people on off that location recorded, confessed, demonstrated also with the courts. Recorded, confessed, demonstrated with foreign and domestic military involved with locations where they're trying to do business, things like that. But they already had those locations involved, like with people with identity thefts and frauds, also in the form of falsified police report roles with the investigators. Now, these are the people associated with the World Trade Center attack and with the investigations of that, and the military ones, all recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with predicate acts on and off Hartford Hospital, roles with child offenders, roles with various natures of courts with those doctors, with all kinds of crime methods bound, tied to what is actually having been recorded through time. Now there's a Dillon family. There are private security officers associated with the campuses that are also in collusion with where and how the branches of government are used remotely as victims, but as pure victim predators, pure predators, and for dishonest reasons, and with delusions. So it is also simultaneously relevant how they are rules predators, which is also recorded, and sequence shifting predators, name switching, passions and emotion faking the whole time, though, because the passions and emotions have, per science, and a relationship. We'll examine it. I'm going to debatable, because where things are still pretended debatable that aren't debatable. Like, there were physical delusions involved with criminally foreign influence premises treatments, involved then and now when people make opinions about Jim Crow laws or about themselves and others. So I want to say, we're such a nice man. Never met him. From the Pettis Bridge. I believe John Lewis. See, but those old timers, forced to entertain, short words forsaken, not realizing that nature would demonstrate further and further possession of all active words and of all long words. So we must simply claim what is true always. And also evidence is proven, for example, that all identity ground locations are tactically denatured and sickly distinctly, specifically to keep that which is most positive. That we should be able to agree in an instant that people in those strong buildings, stacking people like that, tactically denatured, identity ground relationships, identities to other people relationships, uses of that by people pretending to, all victim predators. So we have those delusions too, because we have worse than criminal incompetence with the logic experts, also tied to the identity of the ground locations, how they are used. So, if someone wants to debate, I asked to report, if you call up the school and ask to report simple things that are actually recorded, they pretend not to understand. Then the people influence them to make allegations about the people who call up, who catch them with things. I caught them on and off the campuses in my town. Also, it's people intercities, not just with the unknown, the known and unknown conjunctions between the schools. For example, they have to be trained in each science. Now, these are the people that are also propagate that were involved with roles, with identity theft frauds, that are intercampuses connected also as what is actually recorded shows how they had to hide lie progressions. For how they have spread illusions through the boys and girls that are timed and attach kids to fake locations, fake ties to other kids in the same grade. But they put them in different classes all day so you don't see those people, you don't know them. They continue on off campuses connected uses of confessions, demonstrations of those things, why and how the predicate acts delivery system method was not and is not attached simultaneously to all those questions of critical importance, like what caused Jim Crow laws, a predicate acts delivery system method. Who denies this? They have to hide physical delusions while pretending integrity. They have to value Marbury versus Madison being and having been read with criminal foreign influence and delusions simultaneously. Self-value roles with rules, and as rules predators. We're all identity of the ground locations, identities of the law, sick readings of the law, sick defenses of themselves, where everyone needs to respond to the real causes of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, to where everyone's forced to speak through everyone else. Liars. And simultaneously pretending that other people are liars. So they have people involved with investigations, investigators, vetting identities, made statements and confessions to me out of nowhere through time, multiple times. Like when they used to time where you're going to walk. You know, you walk into the cafeteria. They know this, everyone's already going to be sitting. You're going to be there, you know. You're not going to be rude to people. These are people who have used words like behavior. Only illegitimately. Again, with physical delusions as rules predators simultaneously. So they can't afford to have discerned the simple understanding of what makes computers work and how. For example, the data stream and the locations, how they expand the locations to think, and how we do that where it is juxtaposed. But it is also filling. And it's also where and how we are quality of diffusion, where temporary positive is where one complete identity, distinctly with Earth, is making more temporary or lasting negative value nature, where it can make more forever nature that is positive or negative to its complete self, which is physically manifest as a trinity, cell, nucleus, cell, body, cell, wall. It is 1/3 identities of sequence/simultaneous nature that are filling because of the identity of volume that is at least the equivalent to the body of forever. Its identity of relationship to itself and the value of that distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously onto and as itself, as what is an only increasing identity of volume. As that which we are, semi-nature relationship to where and how the species identity of volume being distinct from the grouped ages, areas, sexes, locations, all physical difference, individual. These three individual grouped and species identity of volume/S. All things are in demonstration of this science. Of and as what is true always, while being exceptions, while being exception nature. while being that not value denied. Too. With the course of logic. So people that are involved with a breached Constitution as fact nature styles, opinions, and convictions, especially formal, private, whatever. So this is too long. Boxing a straw. So that we have to understand that the in-species identity of volume is in a trap that is only capable of causing negative value nature progressions, acts in nature, and where all locations, areas, states, and identity ground locations, opinion natures / conviction natures are only capable of self-valuing that and or blaming the real causes of it on other things, others, and ourselves. In ways that a breaching method uses, because it uses their defenses of that, everyone, and to themselves. Time treatments, everything. That was a method that broke everyone. Just like they break horses to wear the saddle. They did worse to everyone to force them roles with slavery. To care about black people, you don't play games with what is black and white. What is science? You allow free speech. You don't keep the people fighting with passions and emotions where and how the branches of government are involved with our locations, areas, states. They're needing to pretend to perceive things wrong. They're needing to force people to interbranch locations so they can fabricate more audio and video because they have to hide live progressions. Because cases every day, originally and still, they were used by a breaching method, influenced, and uses of them that was per a method that was entrenched here since before our founding parents were even born. To have the honor of having been counter-extorted by James Madison's plan. So they self-value the words how our founders had to hide their roles with what really transpired with the Boston Tea Party, with the Constitution, with the Declaration of Independence, with the unity, the nature of unity towards that, while they still had sickly, distinctly slavery north and south. That is evidence of a predicate auxiliary system method. We're going to refer to as an archetypal criminal enterprise. I am not a lawyer. This is one of the things that the pamphlet will be about. That which can be a business that we could use where we're simultaneously going to show how we're going to give artistic reliefs to people who want and need increasingly every moment answer /S to what they're calling racism to keep that answer from being heard. For example, to keep that breaching method from being discerned, because it is what is actually recorded. And we're going to follow what is simultaneously true all ways, not denying the slightest exception. Or you can't value how the order of the finite and the value of the order of the finite is in relationship to this where it is value is nature / nature is value simultaneously, where and how one identity of volume is inseparable from all others. And as them where we are value as nature / nature as value. And we can't control where and how and why. We are individual grouping together. The individual is a complete identity of volume. More and more they're stealing our short words. More and more they're stealing our identities. All locations, areas, and states are roles. Originally and still, we just need to have mandated law followed. Bonded, mixed natures of organized crime are leveraged upon each age and nature of campus, individually grouped and together, per an effective method of keeping self-cultivated and self-valued, originally instilled, propagated, sequence treatments, premises treatments, finite, active, and progressive, fact treatments, identity treatments that could not and cannot be defended in us at the same time. From the sophistication of the breaching method that used and uses simultaneously, for example, the engineering of the ground locations, means to fathom what can be afforded individually grouped and together. No one has fathomed affording anything other than sick at the time before cars, before our founding parents were born. The way they set up the suburbs to unfold as, and with for the breaching method, and would they set up urban, all these differences to keep how sickly non-distinctly already engineered, a style reliant upon blamed on other things other than themselves. The real cause of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. Hartford, Connecticut is a suburban/urban city right next to Wethersfield, Connecticut, where George Washington had to come right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War to meet with the French general, who he had to get the help of to further Madison's plan, where they had to leave slavery still entrenched north and south. They had to hide what they were doing. The laws were so sick, they were able to force people to do things where they were going to get hurt no matter what. And now they had other people that had that happen to them too, so they had to fight for a nation. Fight to be a country. Sick though. Individually grouped and together, hundreds of nations, A1 through Z, however many there are, in that suit and tie fake. All alternatives to a fake. In collusion, kept needing to hide the same finite lie, sequence shifts. This is recorded what keeps the overt criminal enterprises, more than the money, more than the other real and made up identities of motivations. This is what keeps the private ones, the private criminal enterprises originally still for self-value. That was valued, then they have to defend that. Oh, but it's the perfect world for, it's not, we didn't break it. Everyone has to keep going forward. This is a method. So the pamphleteers are means. In New York City, every time you'll say, you guys are gonna agree, you guys are gonna vote what's the most forsaken location, and we're gonna we'll go to the ones next to it too. But we're gonna do more than vote. We're gonna really figure out, and where the resources gonna come from. It's gonna come from more than that. But somehow we monetize this, the pamphleteers. And then everyone's going to read the pamphleteer because it's going to talk about, like, the Burroughs book. See, but we have to have the countries of the entire species identity of volume on the same page. Ready to counter the same leveraged predicate act system against them and others. Forgiveness is about how everyone was already invested, blaming other things other than themselves, needing to hide lie progressions tied to that. When these courts make mistakes, like they did with all kinds of things, with color. Every time they open their mouths about color, they have physical delusions, criminally formed influence, premises, treatment, self-value. They have rules, predators, identity, ground, locations, collusion. They have that as the value when we use the words like power, might. The senator's name, I believe John Lewis. See, someone could know more about John Lewis But I just have to know the species, identity, or volume individually grouped together. Those are three distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneous identities of power. Sequence true before that, or the identity, the order of the finite. An identity of sequence / simultaneous nature. That is after our progression is already here now. Distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously itself. Its identity of relationship to itself. And the value of that. From inside it. Where more and more of its complete identity is being made. And its complete identity's identity of relationship to itself, that which no one can control. See, they have offensively people with opinions and convictions, used specifically per their roles with the collusion, with that which is actually recorded, which is all locations, areas, and states. Victims that are self-valuing, how they can hide reactions to it. Per self-valued lie progressions, on-off and sequence shifts that are group shared by group maintained sick identities of logic. We'll examine not just per all the things that are juxtaposed, known and unknown. There were used Donald Rumsfeld's phrases, because this is where and how modern nations are identities, where we are fact-cheating nature, and that is exploited by what is fluent through our nations, by maintaining locations, areas, and states self-valued physical delusions, criminally foreign influence premises treatments, sequence treatments, identity treatments. They prevent religious rights, same people pretending before, because they get representatives of the identity ground, of the religions, like the medical locations. They are involved with police forms, people that are doctors, that are just using databases to fabricate audio and video every single day. Perfected predators. Worse than blood clots, metaphysically. Fabricating audio and video. See, but that we have to deal with how these are people that are hiding the lie progressions with and as all private and formal, tied to the interbranch locations. They've been making mistakes on purpose. They've been fabricating evidences in cases since before founding. Again, that's what is recorded simultaneously. When you hear there were Jim Crow laws, there were uses of criminally foreign influence premises treatments, sequence treatments, finite active progressive fact treatments, positive treatments, truth treatments, identity treatments that could not be defended and afford to have discerned all that was actually involved with all locations, areas, states. Now, so it is where and how we need to just not talk about the people around us, forced by the interbranch. We have to talk about them. But they're also, with their narratives, recorded and involved with overt criminal enterprises, and with private ones originally and still, and where they have legitimate positions with such. See, this is what keeps all fact-cheating nature counters to the overtly sick, inherent in relationship to all locations, areas, and states. Every modern nation can't defend themselves and us at the same time. That's evidence. Weathersfield, Connecticut. Recorded, designed to cause negative value nature progressions, acts, nature, specifically to be blamed on other things other than themselves. So you want to debate something. Now, the proofs of this are the wire crime methods, the names forging and switching that the branches of government individually grouped and together have. It is evidence how they left out the other police forms and the foreign ones in collusion with what is really the impositions upon all locations, areas, states. Takes on business, takes on the economy, takes on stability. It's all right to have opinions and convictions. Have them follow mandated law, which they cannot do. They already have Facebook. They just write fake audio and video. They have interbranch and private people involved with intercampuses, predicate acts rules, wrongdoing rules, with Facebook stewards of the campuses. These are also people with forensics locations and with Hartford Hospital involved with predicate acts, and with judges, with their narratives regarding such, where they're fabricating audio and video about what is actually recorded online and over phones. These are people involved with AT&T, recorded, confessed, and demonstrated abuses of girls, where they influenced them, boys and girls, to make confessions to strangers so that in the future, they could hide how they used them for sequence shift roles, where and how I was attached to fake locations. A whole bunch of people on off 2-route highway. I involved with sequence shifts. That's one of the things commonly. Confessed, recorded, demonstrated, confirmed. Roles as people involved with intercities on and off campuses, predicate acts, identity theft, frauds, falsified police report roles, intercities, connected. So, respond for Weathersfield, Connecticut, interbranch, since before founding, before our founding parents were even born. There were the phases of roles with this being and having been forced. There were uses, not just the economic resources. That was a drain. But it was in a way where they engineered everyone to roles, within as what increasingly has to self-value. The solutions only capable of being provided by the archetypal criminal enterprise. So we have to address the physical delusions also recorded and involved. Self-value. In regards to uses of color, only allowed opinion natures, victim predators, to speak for what is the problems here.